Iran sent its proposal today, and Trump said he is not satisfied with it. I want to spend the next 15 minutes explaining why that statement, not satisfied, is the most revealing thing Trump has said about this conflict since it began, and why the 90% collapse in Hormuz shipping that the UK Royal Navy confirmed today tells you something about where this conflict actually stands that no Truth Social post will tell you. Let me start with the proposal itself. And let me be precise about what Iran actually offered, because I think the coverage is going to simplify it in ways that obscure the strategic significance. Iran's proposal, communicated through Pakistani mediators, follows the same framework it has been offering since the Islamabad talks: open the Strait of Hormuz, end active hostilities, create the conditions under which the nuclear question can be addressed in a subsequent phase.
Iran is not proposing to abandon its nuclear program, it is proposing to separate the Hormuz question, the immediate humanitarian and economic crisis, from the nuclear question, the long term strategic dispute, and address them in sequence rather than simultaneously. Trump said he is not satisfied. He told Newsmax, "I want to win by a bigger margin." He added, "We have to have guarantees they will never have a nuclear weapon." Those two statements together tell you exactly what the gap is and why it has not closed in 73 days. What Iran's proposal actually collapses. I want to explain precisely what I mean when I say Iran's proposal collapsed Trump's demand, because the word collapsed is specific, and I am using it analytically rather than rhetorically. Trump's demand and America's stated negotiating position throughout this conflict has been that the nuclear question must be addressed from the outset of any agreement, not deferred, not sequenced, addressed first. The specific demand confirmed by the House of Commons Library is a 20-year moratorium on Iranian uranium enrichment. America wants Iran to commit for 20 years to not enriching uranium as a precondition for ending the conflict. Iran counterproposed 5 years, then proposed sequencing Hormuz first, nuclear second. Trump said not satisfied. Here is what Iran's proposal collapses. It collapses the pretense that there is a straightforward deal available if Iran simply agrees to American terms. Trump's demand is a 20-year enrichment halt. Iran's offer is 5 years in sequencing. The gap between 20 years and 5 years, in a negotiation where America is losing allies, spending $5 billion, watching 90% of Hormuz shipping disappear, and dealing with a congressional war powers challenge, that gap is the strategic situation America is actually in. Not satisfied means the gap has not closed. It does not mean America is winning. It means the conflict continues at enormous cost to the global economy with no agreed exit in sight. The 90% number, what it actually means. The UK Royal Navy said today that shipping traffic in the Strait of Hormuz has dropped by more than 90% since the conflict began. I want to explain why this specific number changes the analysis. Before this conflict, approximately 20 million barrels of oil per day moved through Hormuz. That represents approximately 20% of global oil supply. Agricultural inputs, fertilizer precursors, ammonia, urea, move through Hormuz to every farming region in Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. Manufactured goods from Asian factories move through Hormuz to European and American consumers. 20% of global trade transited those 33 kilometers. A 90% reduction in that traffic means 90% of that commerce is not happening. It is being rerouted around the Cape of Good Hope, adding weeks to transit times and enormous cost to every cargo. Or it is not moving at all, or it is waiting, as 20,000 seafarers are waiting right now, stuck on ships in the waterway, unable to transit, unable to turn back, caught in what the UK Royal Navy called a strangulation of international trade. The UK Royal Navy used the word strangulation, not disruption, not challenge. Strangulation. Let me explain what a 90% reduction in Hormuz traffic for 73 days means in cumulative terms. Every day that 90% of Hormuz shipping does not move is another day of elevated energy costs, elevated food costs, disrupted supply chains, and compounding global economic damage. The Yara CEO warned this week that almost 10 billion meals per week are at risk because of the fertilizer supply disruption. Not meals in one country, 10 billion meals globally every week. The UK Royal Navy called it the worst supply chain disruption since COVID-19 and the Ukraine war combined. That is not a Marandi assessment, that is NATO's maritime force describing what the 90% shipping collapse means in operational terms. And Iran's proposal was to open it in exchange for the blockade ending. Trump said not satisfied. What the gap between 20 years and 5 years actually is, I want to spend a moment on the specific nuclear gap because I think it is being reported as a technical disagreement when it is actually a fundamental dispute about what this conflict is trying to achieve. America's demand is a 20-year enrichment halt. Iran's counteroffer is 5 years. The distance between those two numbers is not just 15 years of enrichment capacity. It is a disagreement about the nature of the settlement itself. A 20-year halt means Iran gives up its nuclear deterrent for a generation. For the IRGC, the institution that is now effectively running Iran's wartime government, accepting a 20-year halt is accepting that the country that bombed it for 40 days and has blockaded it for 73 days retains the ability to resume pressure at any point while Iran has surrendered its primary leverage. No IRGC commander will accept that. The institution was built on the premise that external pressure must be resisted, not accommodated. A 20-year enrichment halt is accommodation on the most fundamental question of Iranian national security. A 5-year halt is different. It creates a diplomatic window, 5 years during which relations can normalize, sanctions can be lifted, economic recovery can begin, and the nuclear question can be revisited from a different political context. 5 years is a bet that the relationship between Iran and America can change enough in that period to produce a better answer to the nuclear question than the one available today. The technical bridge between these positions is Russia's uranium custodianship offer. Trump rejected it, but it is still available. Russia confirmed it this week through Aragchi's Moscow meeting. If the custodianship mechanism is accepted, Iran's enriched uranium leaves Iranian soil, goes to Russian facilities under IAEA verification, and Iran's enrichment capacity is constrained by the absence of the stockpile. That is not a 20-year moratorium, but it achieves what the moratorium is designed to achieve: Iran without a weapons-grade uranium stockpile, while giving Russia the custodianship role and giving Iran the domestic political cover of material going to an ally rather than an adversary. Trump said not satisfied, but the mechanism that bridges the gap is still available, and Beijing is 12 days away. Why this changes everything. Specifically, the convergence of Iran's proposal and Trump's rejection changes three specific calculations simultaneously. It changes the Beijing summit calculation. Trump flies to meet Xi Jinping on May 14th and 15th. Xi will arrive having been briefed by Russia on Iran's full negotiating position, including what Iran offered through Pakistan today. Xi knows the gap. Xi knows the mechanism that bridges it, and Xi will assess Trump's not satisfied response in that context. When Trump arrives in Beijing having rejected a Hormuz opening proposal, Xi's position in the room is stronger, not weaker. China has been running Iran's oil exports through the 90% Hormuz collapse. China has benefited from the crisis even as it publicly supports a diplomatic resolution. Trump needs the summit more than Xi does right now, and Trump arrives having rejected the proposal that would have opened the strait. It changes the congressional calculation. Republican senators like Susan Collins and John Curtis have said they want authorization for continued military action, but require a clear mission and achievable goals. Trump's not satisfied with the Hormuz opening proposal, combined with a 90% shipping collapse confirmed by NATO's maritime force, is not a clear path to an achievable goal. It is an open-ended escalation without a stated endpoint. That calculation is getting harder for Republicans to defend as the economic costs accumulate and the proposal sits rejected with Pakistani mediators. It changes the market calculation. Oil rose to a 4-year high this week because Trump said he would maintain the blockade until the nuclear question is resolved. His not satisfied response today confirms that posture. Markets have now priced in an extended blockade. Brent crude stays elevated. American consumers keep paying at the pump. Russia keeps collecting its 0 million per day windfall. And the proposal that would change all of that is sitting with Pakistani mediators with the answer not satisfied. Iran sent its proposal. Trump said not satisfied. The UK Royal Navy confirmed 90% of Hormuz shipping is gone. 20,000 seafarers are stuck in the waterway. 10 billion meals per week are at risk. The gap is 15 years of enrichment capacity between 20 and 5. The technical bridge, Russia's uranium custodianship, is available and rejected. The Beijing summit is 12 days away. The proposal collapsed Trump's demand in the specific sense that it made visible the gap between what America says it wants and what is actually achievable in a negotiation with a country that has survived 73 days of bombing and blockade while exporting more oil than before the war began. Watch Beijing. Watch the oil price after the summit, and watch whether the proposal that Trump called unsatisfying today becomes the basis of a framework that China and Russia helped broker in a room where America arrived last. That is what changes everything. What the 20,000 seafarers tell you. I want to dwell on this specific detail because I think it is the most humanly immediate consequence of the 90% shipping collapse that the UK Royal Navy confirmed. There are 20,000 human beings, sailors, crew members, engineers, cooks, navigators, who are currently stuck on ships in the Strait of Hormuz. They cannot transit. Iranian maritime rules prevent them from moving through the northern corridor. The American blockade prevents Iranian linked vessels from moving at all. Commercial shipping companies have told their captains to hold position and wait for instructions. And those instructions have not come because the political resolution that would allow them to move has not been reached. These are not statistics, they are people. They left their families to work on cargo ships that carry the goods the world depends on. And they are now involuntary participants in a geopolitical standoff between America and Iran that they had no role in creating and no power to resolve. The UK Royal Navy called their situation a looming humanitarian crisis. Not an inconvenience, not a delay, a humanitarian crisis for sailors in a strait that carries 20% of the world's oil because Trump said not satisfied to a proposal that would have let them move. I am not making this point to generate sympathy. I am making it because the 20,000 seafarers are the most concrete human measure of what a 90% shipping collapse actually looks like on the ground. When Trump says not satisfied and the proposal sits with Pakistani mediators, the consequence of that rejection is not abstract. It is 20,000 people on ships in a strait waiting for a political decision that has not been made. And it will continue until the gap between 20 years and 5 years closes, or until the Beijing summit produces the framework that Russia and China have been building for the last 2 weeks.